This is the final part to my tutorial on water, which is part of the series Elements and Supernatural for webcomics. Please do watch the first part on water as I explain the basics there. In this video I'll be focusing on water bodies and water superpowers. I'll show you a river first. Block in a pale blue where the water would be. Set it to 90% opacity, make a new clipped layer. With a square watercolor brush, draw rough streaks mirroring the environment and sky with a horizontal ruler. Using a smudge brush, stretch these reflections out. Gaussian blur and set this layer to 60% opacity. On another layer, draw slight highlights on light blue or green. Next is the river stream. Because they're so shallow, they would constantly hit against rocks and other formations below the stream. So they would be similar to the waves at a beach but on a smaller scale. Block out a pale blue and around any formations 90% opacity. On a clipped layer 50% opacity, draw horizontal streaks to reflect the surroundings. On another layer, pen brush, draw curved lines of pale blue or mint where the water hits against formations creating waves. Add random streaks of light following the water's movement. Under the light and reflection layers, starting from each wave, color out bands of pale mint, steel blue, and dark teal, just like we did when we drew oceans. Set this to an opacity of 60%. A popular way of drawing shallow waters is this style, so I'll go through this in an example of a pool. Block in your base color and on a new clipped layer make some blobs of varying big and small with pale mint. To save time, copy and paste wherever done with the patch, and merge them together. Transform the layer to match the perspective of the pool. Refine the line art and set the base color to a 90% opacity. Copy the blob layer and clip it beneath, and move it below the original layer. Project alpha and color this copy in dark teal. Move it down to the bottom of the pool. Set it to 60% opacity, then isolate the layer. Shade in where the first wall is of the pool. Then with a slightly darker blue to match the original shading of the pool, color in the adjacent wall. Turn all layers visible again, go back to the base color layer and set it to gradient, from a slightly darker blue to the base color. Lastly, project alpha the light layer and select a color lighter than the shaded water of the wall. Color in with the shaded block as a guide. Characters drowning is a common theme I see in webcomics, so I'll show you how to draw an underwater scene. Gradient from royal blue to dark teal on the first half. Then select the second half, go from dark teal to a darker tone. On an add layer, airbrush, block out the top of the water where the sunlight would hit. And then set airbrush to eraser mode, rub out rough streaks in waves with various circles and bumps. On a new add filter layer 30%, large airbrush to a light blue. Draw various width streaks going in the direction that the sunlight moves, with the brightest being the largest. Duplicate the base color layer, then bring it up to the top. Clip it to the light streak layer. To draw elemental superpowers, you would need to know the basics of human mobility and how movement affects what is visible. If you haven't watched part 1 on fire, please do watch it for a more detailed explanation on movement's visual features. I'll show an example with someone summoning a water circle around them. Here will be the source of the water from the hand where the flow will start from. The ending point will be the tail where the source was a moment ago. Water is a very versatile element, so it can be almost any shape as long as it follows the line of movement. In this case, we'll have to keep in mind the starting point will be the largest section, then gradually becoming thinner like a tail at the end point. Sketch out a tail-like shape, then split up the water into 2 or 3 lines, where we draw the lines for splashes. You can connect the water streaks here and there, in water droplets emerging from the sharp points. Clean up the sketch. As for the colouring, block in teal for the body and pale mint or blue for the streaks. You can instead skip the whole sketching process if you're confident enough just to go on to colouring. In addition, for nighttime lighting, because it's a superpower, you can go on Add Filter and Airbrush to add a glow to the water. Next I'll show you an example with someone manipulating water from the ocean. and bringing it towards the sky in a tornado kind of shape. Same rules as before, sketch out the main body, but you can skip it if you are confident enough to just go straight to colouring, then make streaks following the movement. In this case, it's like a tornado swirl. That's all for today's video and the end of the water section of the Elements and Supernatural for Webtoon series. If you'd like to keep updated with my tutorials and other work, subscribe and thanks for watching.